Well, good morning, everyone. I'm Palmer McIntyre. I'm with Piedmont Legacy Trails, Piedmont Land Conservancy. Welcome to our last Trail Summit Friday for 2022. It has been a great summit. We especially are grateful to all of y'all for joining us these last 3 weeks. We've got a great day lined up today. We've had nearly 90 folks join us from across the state, and I'm guessing some maybe out-of-state folks too. And we've had a lot of great field trips as well. So it's been a super summit. I'm going to share my screen and we will get started here. There we go. All right, so today we're looking at some trail case studies. We have 2 speakers with us today, Mary Alice Holley with the Conservation Trust for North Carolina, and we welcome Spencer Finch from the Philadelphia area, who's now relocated to North Carolina to talk about some trails around Philadelphia. We are especially grateful to our sponsors for this year's Trail Summit: Destination by Design, McAdams, Alta, the American Planning Association with the North Carolina chapter, and the Local Government Federal Credit Union. And I would like to also introduce the Piedmont Legacy Trails team. So we've got Brianna Hafferman, who's our Piedmont Legacy Trails coordinator.
Hi, everybody.
We've got Jesse Day with the Piedmont Triad Regional Council.
Good morning. Good to see everyone.
We've got David Kraft, who is a volunteer on our executive committee.
Good morning.
And Roger Bardsley, I'm not sure if he's with us this morning. Roger, are you there? Maybe you couldn't make it today, but Roger Bardsley has also been a tremendous help. So again, I'm grateful to our team and to our sponsors. And also just a couple of housekeeping notes before we get started. We're just going to ask y'all to stay on mute during the presentations, and we'll use the chat box for questions. So we'll definitely have time for questions after each of the presentations. We're recording, so this will be available on a YouTube channel as well as on our website, so you can share it with the folks you work with and people you know. We're offering credits. That number is here, but it's also on our website. So make sure you take note of that. So the next thing we're going to do is going to turn it over to David Kraft, who's with us with a very special honoree for today, our Piedmont Legacy Trails Award that we have been presenting one a week this year. And he has a special guest who wants to introduce to y'all. So David.
All right. Good morning. I'm out in eastern Guilford County at the home of Harry Clapp. There's a road out here called Clapp Farms Road, and that gives you an idea that Harry's family has been out here for a long time. Harry moved back to Greensboro in the early 90s. He grew up here, went to NC State, go Wolfpack, and then worked up in Pennsylvania and some other places for various railroad equipment companies on signs and controls and things that make railroads work. So the connection between Harry and railroads is pretty obvious. And you can see Harry in the picture out on the old A&Y trestle quite a few years ago. And, you know, Harry's one of those folks that kept showing up. If there was an event related to the A&Y, getting the A&Y going, or some trail opening or trail meeting, Harry was out at the forefront trying to get people excited. He was on the board of North Carolina Rail Trails, which merged back in with the national group a few years ago. But we want to recognize Harry for his consistency and being out and encouraging people to get out on the trails, out in the woods, and involved in building new trails. Legacy, I think, kind of involves something that goes back a long way. So Harry goes back a long way here in Guilford County, and he goes back a long way working on the rail trails. So Harry, I've got a stick for you.
Thank you.
You may not want to go hiking, but you might use this to keep your grandchildren in check. And we've got some nice pictures of you, and we'd like to have a few words from you.
Well, you mentioned the A&Y. The A&Y Trail is over on the old Yadkin Railroad, and it doesn't get into Greensboro proper. And we've been working on that. I was working on that a decade ago. And then I moved away from the area and have come back to it. And we'd like to get that on extended on down in the Greensboro property. There's possibility of tying in with the trails out around the lakes, which is one area in Greensboro that has trails now.
Well, the ANY comes in to the Target store at Lawndale and Battleground, and it's got to wind its way through that mess where Lawndale, Battleground, Westover, Cornwallis, and Pembroke all come together.
Yeah.
And then it will follow the corridor down to North Buffalo Creek and into downtown. So I think we're going to see that on some level in the next 4 to 5 years, we hope. So we'll get you out for a little road trip here in the next month or two, and we'll show you where it is. And we appreciate everything you've done over the years to promote rail trails. So congratulations and thank you, Harry. Just give him a hand.
Thank you, Harry, for being a pioneer and really doing all this before trails have been so popular. So thank you for all of your efforts. And I know some of Harry's family have joined us from various parts of the country. So welcome. And we appreciate your father, your family members so much. So next, we're going to do a legacy award. I'm going to turn it over to Jesse Day to present our last one.
Great, thanks, Palmer. Thank you, Harry, for all your work. I enjoy that Greenway often, so appreciate all your efforts. And David, thank you. I'm honored to present the next Piedmont Legacy Trails Award. This one is for a project. So located along one of the busiest interstates in North Carolina, in an area with a rich history of commerce and recreation and a little bit of war. The Yadkin River Park provides an opportunity to enjoy views of the Yadkin River, learn about that rich history on its banks. You can pedal or walk across the Yadkin River on the decommissioned Wilcox Bridge that used to carry vehicular traffic and allows walkers and bicyclists to enjoy views north and south along the Yadkin River and the upper reaches of High Rock Lake. You can see a shot of that in the image. Located in the Yadkin River's Crossings National Historic District, the Yadkin River Park has long been a trading path prior to European settlement, and conveniently has railroad, vehicular, and bicycle pedestrian crossings. As you can see, naturally makes that a transportation corridor. The recreational access has been continually expanded. Yadkin River Park has provided parking, picnicking, and access up at the grade of that historic Wilcox Bridge, built in, I think, 1924. I'm sure there's folks on here that can correct any details I get incorrect, but it's a spandrel arch design and built in that over almost 100 years ago, and still standing very well today. Prior to the Yadkin River Park improvements, where you can see the ribbon cutting and the groundbreaking, the recreation access was really limited down near the river. And so the ribbon cutting of 2019 really showed off the park's potential. And since then, additional camping sites, trail access to York Hill, where some of that early battlefield, Civil War battlefield stuff was happening, has been expanded, and these opportunities continue to expand. Recently, a master plan was completed by Davidson County Parks and Recreation Department with support by a consultant. I think Jeff is on the line here, who worked on that. And that includes an environmental center, education center, which has now been funded with a grant, about a $3 million grant, which will allow the public to have a staffed visitor contact station, learn about the history, and allow community groups, environmental education, recreation clubs to use the facility and further their mission and activities. So without further ado, I'm really honored to present this award to all the people involved in the project, including the Yadkin River Park Planning Committee, the Davidson County Commissioners, the Tourism and Recreation Investment Partnership. You can see all those folks on the screen, North Carolina Department of Transportation, the Parks and Recreation Department, and really just any number of volunteers, historical experts, land trust foundations, community supporters, and benefactors. There's just too many to go through all those names on the screen, but you can see how many folks were involved. And so there's just too many to include here, over 50 plus folks, but we had to pick one person to accept the award. And I'm really honored to introduce a mentor of mine, a friend, Guy Kornman, to accept on behalf of the many, many people involved. And he's in the Parks and Recreation Department right now in Davidson County with Thomas Marshburn, the director. And so to you guys, congratulations and thank you. And I'll turn the floor over to you to correct any errors I have in history, because I know there's some history buffs there, and or details I left out or people I've left out. So Guy, congratulations and thank you for what you do.
Thank you, Jesse. I really do appreciate it. It means a lot having you present this to me on behalf of the entire group that you talked about. It really takes a village to pull off a project like this. And it's taken many, many years. I was trying to remember about when I first started hearing discussions about the Yadkin River corridor and the Trading Fork District, and it was about 1994 or so. And we were just being introduced to the area by David Long, who was the chief planner for the region. He wanted to do a strategic plan for the river corridor and the counties on both sides of the river from the South Carolina state line up to Davidson and Rowan. And he used to call this corridor the black hole of North Carolina because people did not know much about the area, but knew there were some tremendous assets. And this Trading Fork District and the Wilcox Bridge that you see a picture on your screen was one of the assets that he said that we needed to really pay attention to. And so it wasn't too many years after that that I got a call from the DOT saying that the bridge was scheduled to be demolished, and that unfortunately we had already started a bridge club, quote unquote, of folks on both sides of the river who were interested in preserving the bridge, and we quietly worked behind the scenes to build support. And it was about 2001 is when the state became really serious about moving forward with the federal highway project, and we worked with them. And as you have probably realized, we did partner early on with the Rowan County folks, but their board of commissioners decided that it was going to be too much of a issue for their budget. But I was able to work with the folks here in Davidson County, and we were able to convince Dr. Max Walser was on the board at that time, and we partnered with Billy Joe Kepley, who was also a commissioner who's now deceased, and we were able to formulate a plan on how we could take this project on. And the federal highway folks were really pleased, and the DOT and Pat Ivy, our division engineer, Pat, bless his heart, he really didn't want us to take this on. He thought it was going to be too much of a project for us, but we convinced him that we had solid support behind it, and we eventually got him involved, and he became an advocate for us. And without his help, we wouldn't have gotten as far as we did. And we had, again, a lot of folks involved. Lynn Raker with the Landscape Architects Society in North Carolina, her group did an original plan for us, and did it with no cost to the county. And so that gave us an early blueprint. And then, of course, a lot of things were happening at that time. The formation of the RPOs, and the Davidson County was not a member of an MPO. So the RPO, we reached out to Jesse, and Hannah Cockburn was early on there, and we just continued to plug at it, and we just built our support. It's just amazing what has transpired out there. And once the bridge was, it was about 2010 that the county voted to accept ownership of the bridge from the DOT. And about that time, we were brought Thomas Marshburn in, and under his good graces, we worked to build some trails out there, and we worked with the land trust. The land trust was born out of the old Yadkin PD Lakes project, which was the strategic planning effort of that river corridor. And so we were able to get the land trust to purchase the Fort York property, which sits above the bridge. And when we got ready to assume ownership of that, we were able to start building trails out there under Thomas's troops in the Parks and Rec department. So like I said, it's just been a tremendous effort by so many different folks. It's hard to name them all, but they were at the table with us. Right now, our partner on the other side of the river is the town of Spencer. They have major plans to develop their side of the river. I want to give a shout out to those folks, and Jeff Ashball, who had did a master plan for us as well. And it's been a job. And I spent 36 years with the Davidson County Planning Department, and this was certainly one of my crowning jewels in my tenure during my time at Davidson County. I'm just real proud of it. Just a personal note, my grandfather actually worked on this bridge in 1924 when he graduated from NC State. Back then it was North Carolina A&M college. So, but anyway, it's hard for me to believe that I actually preserved a project that my grandfather had actually worked on. So it makes me.
Well, you're making him proud, guy, and well deserved. So appreciate you accepting on behalf of everybody today.
Okay, well, thank you.
All right, you get the hiking stick, and you can work with all 50 other people on that list on the slide. So. Well, great.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Jesse.
Thanks for that. We'll transition to our presentations today. And again, thanks to both of our Legacy Trails Award winners. And really, this is why we do this work. You can see all the great things that are happening around those efforts, but it takes people to push those projects, but it's really creates such value for our region and quality of life. So thank you. Well, we have a great slate of speakers today. I want to introduce our first presenter. Her name is Mary Alice Holley, and she works for the Conservation Trust for North Carolina. She's going to talk a bit about Princeville's Heritage Trail and what they're working on there. She's works with CTNC, the Conservation Trust for North Carolina Staff Board, and partners to ensure organization advances its mission to build resilient, just communities for all North Carolinians. And for the past 2 years, she has managed a partnership in the town of Princeville in Eastern North Carolina and NC State as they apply smart and innovative conservation strategies to help the flood-prone region rebuild with resilience as they're at sea level and really challenged with some flooding issues as those storms get larger and more expansive as we've seen in the last decade. So very important work, Mary Alice, and really interested to hear your story, but of that work. And in her spare time, Mary Alice enjoys hiking with her family and exploring North Carolina's hidden treasures in her kayak. So I'll turn it over to you, Mary Alice, and really looking forward to your presentation.
Thank you. All right, I will share my screen. Can you all see my screen? Perfect. Well, thanks everyone for having me today and letting me kind of share all the great work that's going on in Princeville. Princeville is about an hour east of Raleigh. We've been working with them for the past 2 years to build effective partnerships around utilizing conservation to address floodplain areas. So if you've lived in North Carolina for any amount of time, you've probably heard the story of Princeville. It is situated on the Tar River. And because it was built in a swampland post-slavery, it continually floods. So it was very much kind of on the brink of destruction after Hurricane Floyd and then again after Hurricane Matthew. The town now has about 1,200 residents who still live there. And there have been a number of groups that have partnered with the town in their rebuilding strategy. What's really unique about Princeville is that it is one of these places in North Carolina that is really figuring out how do we live with the river and how do we live with flooding instead of being afraid of the flooding in the river and just packing up and moving. There's an incredible amount of historical significance here. It is the first town in the country founded and chartered by freed Blacks after emancipation. So it is incredibly important to the community that they stay and that they rebuild and they find healthy ways of managing their floods. So CTNC worked with NC State Coastal Dynamics Design Lab to design what is called a flood print. And so this graphic on the screen is actually looking at green spaces and vacant FEMA properties all over town to figure out how we can find productive ways to store water, but at the same time produce a community benefit. The Heritage Trail was one aspect of that vision plan to not only store water, but also to create safe walkable pathways for the community to get to the main connection points in and around town. So before we move forward, I will show a video and you guys will, let's see here. You guys will get to meet the partners in Princeville who we've been working with and get a little bit of background on what we've been doing for the past couple of years. Thumbs up if you can hear. Is the sound coming through?
The thing that makes Princeville special is what our forefathers endured. They shed their blood, sweat, and tears right on these ground that we're standing on now. And these are real sacred grounds because this was right after slavery was over. They came over with absolutely nothing, with their God-given gifts and talents, and this was swampland. That's one of the reasons that we flood constantly, because we are on swampland. But they did not complain because they knew there was a better life for them in the swampland versus in slavery.
Princeville was in a unique place, is in a unique place adjacent to the Tar River, and the elevation of the community is prone for flooding. So flooding was repetitive as early as the 1800s until 1999, when Hurricane Floyd came and devastated the entire community. The community is still under recovery as a result of Hurricane Matthew in 2016.
When the hurricane came, it just wiped out. It was total devastation for the kids. It was just really traumatic for them because it took everything they knew and displaced them.
The community was very active and vocal in making sure that the school was rebuilt. Because I think it would have been easy for them to just send students to other schools and not even have to rebuild. But this is like the hub of the community.
The biggest thing was bringing the family home, bringing our culture back in.
The town feels very fortunate that we can see the long-term relationship, the commitment of the project to include the heritage walking trail, to include the rain garden for the Princeville Elementary School. And it shows Princeville citizens that there's a true investment, a true commitment, and a true partnership in sustaining Princeville. So having several partners working in harmony for the best interests of Princeville and protection of Princeville is just like a dream come true.
The beauty of the work that we've done with the Conservation Trust and other partners is that we emphasize being resilient and not solely focusing on the negative impacts of flooding.
And what they have done is just a beautiful rain garden, the trail, and what that does, of course, not only does it help us make the floods less severe if it were to occur again, but it's a teaching point for our students to get them involved, to get them knowledgeable about things of that conservation, how important it is, not only for Princeville, but countrywide. If they leave and want to go someplace else, those type things are still going to be important because global warming is real. And if we're going to be successful in the future, if we're going to survive in the future, we have to address those type issues.
Can't wait for it to rain because I wanted to see like, okay, what does this do? Like, and so the first time it did, I was like, oh my, it flooded. Cause like the water seemed pretty high, but it absorbed it pretty quickly. And then I saw like the plants come to life a little bit more. And I was like, oh, now I don't have to worry that the front of the school is going to flood. To be honest, when they first said we're going to build a trail over there, I was like, okay, all those trees and those woods, okay, this should be interesting. But now I can't imagine that space without the trail.
Wow. Before we started this, it was covered in poison ivy, debris, brush, bikes, pools, basketballs, footballs. It was completely covered with vegetation, and to see the guys come in here and clear this out the way they did, it was great. What I was impressed by the most were the youth. They dedicated several hours and weeks of their summer to be here to make this happen. And that just shows the commitment that they had toward this project.
But just being able to walk the ground of like history, that was just an awesome and amazing experience. And so students read a book, I Am Enough, in their ELA classes. And so then the art teacher got them to do self-portraits. And then the NC State group decided like we could use these to put in the outdoor learning space. But just being able to see like their faces, just like it really made my heart smile because we did this work for them, and to have that put into the space, I think has just been like icing on the cake.
We have so many different organizations that called us and wanted to assist, and we vetted and made sure that we have people that's coming here that are true to what they're saying. Conservation Trust lived up to that billing. We have told some people no, but we certainly thank Conservation Trust for sticking with us and producing that beautiful trail, producing what they've done over at Princeville Elementary, and continue to work with us even after they complete those projects. So those things that we're doing is making a positive impact, not only on the town of Princeville, but other communities as well.
The town is hoping that we can continue to be utilized as a model and a guide for other communities who are faced with the same struggling episodes with flooding or other natural disasters. For us, it's an emergency preparedness tool for the community of Princeville. It's given citizens who may feel hopeless, has given them a relief of hope.
A lot of folks are involved in this project. Oh, no. There we go. So there's the town of Princeville and the partners that we've been working with. We worked with Coastal Dynamics Design Lab to really map out a lot of the infrastructure developments and help us with the planning aspect. The town leadership was instrumental in helping actually with the execution. So we utilized all town-owned land to build this section of Heritage Trail. It's about a 1/4 mile in length, and it connects the elementary school to the History Museum at the center of town. And then from the History Museum, you're just about a stone's throw away from the Town Hall and Senior Center that were just recently reopened. All of this work was done during COVID. So we received our grant notification, I believe as soon as we left for quarantine. And so, we called the town and said, do you want us to continue? Do we need to hit pause? And they said, no, this is going to be a really fantastic way for all of us to work together and give people something to be excited and energized about while there's a lot of chaos going on elsewhere. And so half the trail is mulch and half is actually screenings and crush and run, but it's all designed to where if the area gets flooded, that it doesn't take a whole lot of manpower to get the trail back up and running. What you'll see in these photos too is these are swamp white oaks, trees that have been planted. So as they mature, they're going to create shade, screening, privacy from the neighboring apartment complex, but they're also absorbing of all of the water that we expect the town to get in the coming years. So this very much was a collaborative effort with the town. They let us know how they wanted the trail to be mapped out, which parcels to use. We worked with the Public Works Department to mow and clear land and get it ready for our Conservation Corps to come in. We used the town communication channels to share with residents about the future plans that this trail was coming. And it was just a really collaborative effort from day one. So one of the items that the town really expressed that they wanted was making sure that the youth were involved in this project. So we partnered with Conservation Corps North Carolina to actually construct the trail. We offered paid full-time jobs for either 4 weeks or 8 weeks over the summer. We worked with Tarboro High School, which is actually the sister school of Princeville Elementary. And a lot of the students who worked on the trail were students at Princeville Elementary before it was closed down after Hurricane Matthew. Another item that really energized the students to apply was we worked with philanthropic partners and retail partners to pay for all of their gear. So we really wanted to evaluate what are the barriers to getting folks to sign up for crew when that might not be something they've ever known was an opportunity. They don't know what crew is. They don't know what they're going to be getting into. And we didn't want conservation and crew work to feel inaccessible, like you're only going to see it in an REI ad with these really expensive hiking boots. So we paid for their boots, their pants. Conservation Corps provided their uniforms. Town of Princeville provided water bottles and backpacks. So we really were thoughtful about making sure that anybody who wanted to apply or be involved was able to do so and encouraged to do so. We also planned professional development events. In this photo, we have a core staff person who came and did a resume teach, and we had professors from the high school come talk to the kids and just tell them thank you for all their work. We also had NC State students come present to them about what it would be like to go on to NC State and join the landscaping design track for education. And I'm excited to say that we've already successfully fundraised for year 2 to include an additional trail network in Princeville. And we have some returning applicants from last year. So I guess the heat and the bugs did not scare them off. And engaging community residents. So this was the first section of a network of trail that is planned for the entire town. And because it runs behind a apartment complex, we really wanted to make sure that we were not planning for the community without the community. And I know that's something we hear a lot of. And I think we can also take for granted that as conservation and trail building organizations that we think trails are awesome, so everyone's going to think trails are awesome. And I think that was not originally what we experienced in the community. So we wanted to make sure that nobody felt like they walked out of their door one day and just saw teenagers with hand tools cutting into their grass. We really wanted them to understand what we were doing, why we were doing it, and then also give them the opportunity to help in the planning stages. So we did a community resident event, and we actually had them vote on trail plans and include what they thought about the trail, what they wanted to see. We had staff from every partner organization on site ready to answer questions. Some of the misconceptions that they had at the beginning were, what kind of traffic is it going to bring? Is it going to bring negative traffic? Is there going to be more trash? Am I going to have to worry about people being outside of my porch area when I just want to spend time with my family and grill out? They also, on the positive end, said things like, I'm really excited to have a safe walkable pathway to the local convenience store. Right now, I have to go on a busy road with no sidewalks, and this is going to be a much better option for me. I'd love to see benches so that I could sit and enjoy watching people walk by and play. So all of those aspects were incorporated into the planning and execution. And I'll say, planning that from the beginning was integral to getting that community support from residents who otherwise I think would not have had the opportunity to give it had we not planned that in advance. And again, planning for COVID barriers. We planned this event in April of 21, so this kind of pre-vaccines, everybody was still isolating. And we did everything outside on a Sunday afternoon, adjacent to the housing complex where everybody could just literally walk across the street and come talk to us. We worked with the manager of the apartment complex to make sure that everybody was aware of what we were doing, that we had this opportunity to talk to us. And it was well attended, and we got lots of really good feedback for the planning phase. And the key takeaway for that is to always keep an open mind about what a community wants and how they want to use it. So the adjacent elementary school now uses the trail for outdoor education classrooms. So we've installed educational signage along the trail to educate them about floodwater, stormwater, pollinator plants. We've created a lesson plan for the teachers at the elementary school to help really educate them on how they can use this as an education tool. And the schools even put in additional signage about like making sure that the crosswalk from the school to the trail is really safe and people are slowing down. So the school community has been really excited to use the trail and use all aspects of it. And then also the residential community has been really excited to have those transportation pathways to get to and from where they're going. Another one I always like to share with people is making sure that you understand how to leverage your resources for community benefits. You'll see here we have just a growing list of partners who are helping us with not only executing the trail network, but also, like you saw in the video, rain gardens, stormwater management, education, and environmental ed through our AmeriCorps program. We have a lot of partners involved, and everybody is really honed in on where's their expertise and what resources do they bring to this project. And also as conservation and trail groups, I think we often don't realize the power that we have to leverage fundraising, the relationships we have with fundraisers and funders, applying with state government, applying with the trust funds to fund some of these projects. It really takes the burden off of the local community, especially a local community that's in recovery after a hurricane, if that's one less thing they have to worry about. I think that has been such a crucial point of building this relationship with the town of Princeville and the local residents, is that not only have we come in and said, we're going to do this project, but we've come in with dollars set aside for seed grants. We gave a seed grant to the elementary school to figure out how to use the trail. We are currently planning for phase 2, which will include a community garden space, and we've set aside a seed grant for management of the community garden. And then we've also brought money to the local retailers. We use all local caterers. So we really try as much as possible to put as much philanthropic money back into Edgecombe County and the town of Princeville as possible through these efforts. So not only are residents benefiting from conservation value being brought into the community, they're benefiting from economic value being brought in. And then just get started. I think a lot of times especially through communities in recovery, there's so much planning and there's so much hurry up and wait. They're promised this money from government, or they're promised these projects that are going to happen, and it seems like it takes forever. It took 5 years to bring the elementary school back online after it was closed down after the flood. And 5.5 to 6 years for the town hall, the senior center, and they're still waiting on some of their other buildings to come back. So I think the town really, really appreciated that we were able to come in quickly, and the span of starting the plan and then completing the trail and then holding a community celebration was only about 1.5 years, 2 years. And so I think they were pleasantly surprised by how quickly we were able as a private entity to come in and start and finish a project. And I think too, we are phasing this project out over the course of between 5 and 10 years, so that they can see the small wins and they can celebrate the wins. So we had over 100 people attend the celebration and ribbon cutting of the trail. This included school administrators, parents and teachers, partners from the groups that we worked with to execute this. And I think, again, it's just considering how do you continue building goodwill and generating excitement so that you can continue into phases 2, 3, 4, etc. And we'll open it up for questions, but before we do, I'm really excited. We'll be announcing on Monday that we did receive CTNC a additional grant from a environmental justice and climate initiative to continue phase 2. And that will include another section of the Heritage Trail. It will include developing a community garden and developing more stormwater retention and managed wetlands, specifically on vacant FEMA properties. So, you know, as a lot of these towns in North Carolina are realizing, and as Mayor Jones said, climate change is real and floods are going to continue impacting communities all over North Carolina. And with that comes FEMA buyouts, and with FEMA buyouts come vacant properties. So Princeville is currently testing how we can better utilize those vacant properties for community benefits, and hoping that other towns in North Carolina can be inspired by that and start to implement similar strategies as they move forward. So thank you, everyone.
Great, thanks, Mary Alice. That was a wonderful presentation. We do have a few questions. So Brianna's got a question in the chat. I'm not sure if you can read that, but about the time intensity of community outreach.
Let's see. How time intensive was the community outreach? I'd say on our part, it was time intensive in the planning ahead of time, but we were really interested in making sure that the community was not time intensive. So the survey for the trail on their part was an afternoon, and it included, I think, a 3-question survey and some dot voting and post-it voting. And so for them, no more than 30 minutes of their time. We also had social media outreach. There were also community meetings associated with the flood print design. So that happened about a year prior. So we are always really trying to consider community engagement in these projects. Additionally, because our main point of contact with CTNC is the town civic leaders, so we have kind of monthly standing calls with their town manager, and she does a really great job of relaying back to us all the information she's receiving from the community, and then we're able to incorporate that into our plans and execution. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Good. Yeah, the next one is from Palmer's. How have you all planned for future maintenance of the trail and other conservation features, given that, you know, with all the flooding that occurs and sort of, you know, the use?
That is a great question. So again, it comes back to community engagement. So we've been working with the Public Works Director, who was featured in the video from the very beginning of all of the planning. So he's actually been kind of the key decision maker on what materials we're using. And he's also been instrumental in the long-term maintenance plans. So NC State works with the maintenance departments at the town of Princeville for the town-owned properties, and the maintenance departments for Edgecombe County Schools on the school-owned properties. And they co-create long-term management plans. And then the short-term management plans are still being focused on by and executed by CTNC and NC State and volunteer opportunities. So I would say, especially with corporate funders, this has been a great project to engage corporate funders because they really like seeing tangible results from the money they're giving. And they also like opportunities for their staff to be involved in volunteering. And so for things like remulching the trail, removing invasive plants and weeds, those are great volunteer activities that we've really kind of incorporated into the short-term management.
Yeah, that's great. Can I ask you one quick favor? Maybe just stop sharing the screen so we can see you a little better. But the other part of that question was, is CTNC going to be involved for how long in NC State? You know, just like what's going on with that kind of near-term involvement, and then what about some of the future phases? So.
Yes, so CTNC will continue to be involved. We adopted a strategic plan in 2019 to build resilient, just communities and to fund community-led conservation initiatives like this one. So we plan to be involved for probably the next 10 years at least. And future phases will be dictated by the flood print that NC State designed. And the flood print analyzed green space all over town and created recommendations for how that green space could be used effectively. And those uses include recreation, trail creation, small scale agriculture and farming, i.e. community gardens. NCORE is evaluating if there are floodplain buyouts that could be possible related to holding and storing water closer to the river.
What's NCORE?
NC Office of Recovery and Resiliency out of the governor's office. So with all of those moving parts, CTNC does plan to continue to be involved because we feel like we have a good roadmap for what we'll be doing. And then again, we always come back to the town for phases 2, 3, and 4. Phase 2 right now is 18 months, and the town co-wrote that work plan with us before we started fundraising.
Yeah, great, good. Well, thanks. Are there any other last questions before we move on? I really appreciate your time, Mary Alice, and sharing this wonderful story. Still evolving, of course, and excited to see the next phase. And congratulations on the grant to be announced next week. So we won't send out any press releases. So good stuff. Well, great. Well, we'll move on to our next presenter. And if you have any questions for Mary Alice, hopefully you can stick around to the end of the presentation. If folks have questions in the chat, you can send me those directly. So what a great project. Shifting gears a little bit to something much more urban and large scale, we're going to learn a little bit about Spencer Finch's experience on the circuit trails in Philadelphia. And Spencer's an engineer with over 2 decades of experience in both the consulting and public and nonprofit sectors. He brings distinctive multidisciplinary skills in transportation engineering, complete streets, and pedestrian bicycle infrastructure design, which is much needed, with a focus on environmental engineering and sustainable infrastructure. And Spencer provides strategic guidance to help communities plan and design healthy active transportation networks. He also specializes in grant writing and grant management, resiliency planning, retrofitting, and sustainability programs. And he is also a staff member of Alta Planning and Design, which is one of our sponsors. So thank you for that sponsorship. And then, you know, it's a native of Eastern Carolina, Nash County. His family's been there for hundreds of years. So glad to have you back in the state, Spencer, and excited to hear about your experience in the Philadelphia area and some lessons learned that we can use here in the Piedmont Triad.
Jesse, thank you so much. It's great to be here and see all these friendly faces here. I'll jump right in. I know everybody has really busy schedules, but I hope you spend a few minutes with us and learn a little bit more about the work that I was proud to be a part of with the circuit trails in the Philadelphia metro area. So let me share my screen. Can everybody see the big green slide? Good. So the circuit trails, how we got to hundreds of miles of happy. So hundreds of miles of happy was the original slogan there for the circuit trails. If you go on circuittrails.org today, you will see proud to trail with a big heart right in the middle. It's really trying to get the whole metropolitan region to get engaged in completing and using the trail system for many, many different purposes. So what are the circuit trails, right? The goal was to connect people to jobs, communities, parks, waterways. A big focus of it was to make sure that people, know where the trails are. They're typically around our creeks and rivers. And that's part of the bigger strategy, regional strategy of protecting the watersheds. The trail network covers a 9-county region in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. You'll see on a map on the next slide, and extending into Delaware a little bit as well. The main spine is the East Coast Greenway, which links this corner, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, north to New York City, New York State, and south towards Baltimore and DC, and also connects east and west through the center of the state and the northeast corner of Pennsylvania as well. You can see that better on this map. So Philadelphia is right at center here where the orange oval is, and this is the most current map. Right, so the green sections are the sections that are complete, and there are main spines of the network. So the one that popped up right now is the Schuylkill River Trail. It's the oldest and most complete segment. Eventually, it'll be 160 plus miles all the way into central Pennsylvania. Second main spine is the Delaware and Lehigh Canal Trail. So it follows an old canal along the Delaware River on the Pennsylvania side of the river, all the way up into Northeast PA, so hundreds of miles up as well. Another spine is the Delaware and Raritan Trail, which basically starts right there where the DNR label is, and then starts going to the northeast in towards New York City. And connecting all of these is the East Coast Greenway, which is the main axis here from northeast to southwest, connecting New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, all the way from, the bigger connection from Maine to Florida, and through our region here as well. So the circuit, what is the circuit, right? Today the goal is 800 miles, but the short-term goal is to reach 500 miles by 2025. There are 334 miles complete already, so that means that the circuit needs to build 150 or so miles. This number has gone down since the slide was pulled together, in the next 3 years or so. So that's the big picture, the map, right? But what is really the circuit? Behind the scenes here, it's the Circuit Coalition. So it's an amazing group of nonprofits, foundations, government agencies, local governments. There are 65 plus member organizations, as you can see here on this slide, and it keeps growing, right? So you see a whole gamut of advocacy, lots of nonprofits that actually own trails, and lots of agencies, municipal, state, collaborating, including SEPTA, our transit agency. Bicycle Coalition is the major advocacy organization in the region, and the State Department of Conservation and Natural Resources right there in the middle. How did we get here, right? How did we get to 360 plus miles? How do we get to 500 miles by 2025 and to the 800 plus by 2040? So to do that, we got to rewind a little bit, go back in history to 2009. Back then, this was the first map that kind of started mapping together the trails, and all the red that you see are all the gaps, right? So you see the Schuylkill River Trail here on the left side, lots of green, but basically everything else was in red. And the DNL and the DNR right at the top right of the map felt like really, really far away from most communities here in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. There's the Schuylkill River Trail, downtown Philadelphia, and there's the DNR and DNL really far away. The story was that, there were lots of pros, right? Lots of things that were helping us back then. State agency and William Penn Foundation supported all these organizations financially in trying to complete the trails. But there were lots of obstacles. Everybody was working on their own individual little piece of trail, quarter mile here, half mile there. The region is really fragmented. There's over 350 municipalities in the metro region. There was little long-range planning and little interest from the major players, right? The city itself, the DOTs, the counties. So there was no direction from above to make the network connect. Into the void here, step 2 organizations. So the Bicycle Coalition was the advocacy organization. They were focused on completing gaps in the Schuylkill River Trail. And then the Pennsylvania Environmental Council, where I was at the time, was trying to complete the East Coast Greenway along the Delaware River. And we said, hold on, let's talk and see what we can do together instead of competing and instead of trying to gather coalitions just for our little pieces here. Let's see what we can do if we start collaborating. So here was the map for the East Coast Greenway. All the dashed were all the gaps along the Delaware River. And there was lots of work to be done. And as we were talking about finding ways to collaborate, suddenly the US DOT Tiger program was created and became a focus of our work. So that kind of spurred the conversation, was one more incentive for all these nonprofits and local governments to start collaborating and to start getting the attention of cities, counties, and the DOTs. And we ended up writing several rounds of TIGA grants. The first one is this black cover here. You see at the left was a Tiger 1 grant that we wrote. And as a result, we had a bigger ask, right? But we had 17 segments throughout the region that were prioritized. We involved the DOTs, we involved the local MPO. We basically did all the work for them, right? Or a majority of the work, and kept asking them for advice and kept asking them for support, and they got on board and they started helping us vet the projects, which ones were ready and which ones were not for prime time. Remember, one of the requirements was that projects be shovel ready. And as a result, we had 17 segments put in the application and 10 of them got funded. So this was one of only 2 Tiger Round 1 grants that were awarded that were pure pedestrian bicycle connectivity grants. The other one was the Indianapolis Cultural Trail. So we started filling in the gaps, and this is where the map was in 2012, right? You start seeing a little bit more green, a little less gaps. What does that mean in reality, right? So breaking it down, we started filling up the gaps in the Schuylkill River Trail and the East Coast Greenway, connecting into New Jersey and the city of Camden, which is an area of very persistent poverty. So they had no access to the river, even though it was right there at their doorstep. So started connecting into there as well, and making plans, right? Not just having one organization here fight for their half-mile trail, but really coordinating everybody and trying to say, okay, if we complete this gap here, your trail is now connected to this, has a lot more value. These were the critical gaps. So all these little circles are the critical gaps that were identified for the Tiger 1 application. And basically all the ones that are closer to downtown Philadelphia and downtown Camden got funded. And all the ones that are further away, that were more suburban in nature, more rural in nature, were not funded in that Tiger 1 grant. And the story is we started building all of these segments. There's a whole backstory of how we managed it. But as a result of the Tiger 1 grant, then we were able to get the MPO and the William Penn Foundation to create a $10 million regional trail fund. We started coordinating budgets of the 7 major regional trail nonprofits. So that meant that was an additional 26 million that really started getting targeted into creating the network. And because of that focus, we were able to line up not only the 23 million from the Tiger grant, but approximately 50 million in additional funds just in those years following the grant. And we started making plans, right? How much more would be needed to complete the main spines of the network? And that was basically at the time saying, oh, if we invest about double what we were able to raise so far, we would be able to complete all the spines. So what has happened since 2012 or so, right? Ridership in the city of Philadelphia has gone up, right? So Philly is the 6th largest city in the nation, about 1.5 million people, over 5 million people in the metro region. And it is one of the cities that has the highest bicycle ridership. So the regional trail network is part of that picture. And then in some parts of Philadelphia, South Philadelphia, for example, has bike commute rate of 6%, right? So that's due to both the trails and the bike lanes and buffered bike lanes and so forth that have been installed to connect to the trails. The regional trail fund from that $10 million initial investment has doubled, right? So up to 2021, 22 million had been provided from that regional trail fund. There's an additional 2 million that was provided between last year and this year. And that original $76 million investment that happened in the first 4 years after the Tiger 1 grant now has added up to over 344 million. So almost almost 10 times, right? So 8 times as much. So getting everybody on board and getting the conversation going, it's an ongoing conversation now. There's a process in place. MPOs and DOTs are completely involved in that. We're completing more and more of the network. And this is a crazy graph here, but in reality, it's really simple, right? Just look at the colors. There's lots of state funding, which is the green, lots of federal funding, the blue. The foundation support has remained steady, and local funding that has gone in, right? And the thicker the line, the more funding these programs have provided, and they all add up to the 344 million. So these are some of the projects that were completed as part of the Tiger One and subsequent funding, right? So top left is a cycle track along the Delaware River. So it's right next to a major arterial. So sometimes the trails take the form of cycle tracks right next to roadways. At bottom left, this is a famous shot of downtown Philadelphia here at right and University City at left. Here's the Schuylkill River. And this is the Schuylkill River Boardwalk. So it's about a 3/4 mile segment that was built in the Schuylkill River with Tiger One funding. It is built to be resilient, right? It is built to take the flooding levels. Whenever the Schuylkill River floods, and it's been more frequent in the last decade since this was built, the structure takes a beating. There's tons of debris after a flood, but it's cleaned up and reusable, a couple of days after a flood event. On the right side here, along the lines of what you saw on the Yadkin River bridge here earlier at the conference, this is an old abandoned rail bridge that had sat there unused for decades. And it was part of the submission of Tiger One, did not get funded, but we came back and got additional funding. So atop the bridge, now you see at the top right is the connector between the Schuylkill River Trail and the Kenwood rail trail. And it's basically this plaza in the sky, right? It connects the city of Philadelphia to prosperous suburban communities. And this is where people go to just enjoy the view and, enjoy a trail town right there. There's a neighborhood in Philadelphia called Maniac that's has a main street full of restaurants and bars and galleries and so forth. So the process has continued. I don't want you guys to read every single bullet here on these upcoming slides, but you remember seeing all those red circles, right, on the prior maps. So these are the red circles as of 2021, right? We filled in the gaps, and you see a lot more green on this map. And you see the networks extending, right? So there's still some gaps right at the center, right in Philadelphia, but the goal right now is to try to connect the longer trail segments in suburban locations and try to get more segments of trail, so you get many more options and a lot more regional connectivity done. What this map also shows is that all the municipalities in blue are municipalities that have passed resolutions in favor of the circuit. And the dark gray ones are the ones that are being added as of 2021. And a lot of the light gray ones are locations where the network doesn't reach yet as of yet. But for the most part, most of the municipalities along the trails have signed on, are really supportive of completing the network. Another factor of success was that the Pennsylvania DOT has created an individual tip line, right, on their state transportation plan. There's a tip line on a transportation improvement plan. So every year, funds can be streamed directly to that tip number that can then fund the trails on the network. So this is arcane kind of thing if you're not into engineering and construction, but this is part of the process, right, of making sure that everything is in place to be able to move funding quickly to complete the network. If you do want to dig in into a lot of that, you can go to the Circuit Trails website and go to the resource library. There's lots of presentations, lots of reports, lots of useful information there. So would really recommend you go there. But to wrap up, right, some of the lessons learned from over a decade of experience with the circuit. You need leadership at the top, right? So you needed that regional collaboration, right? All these folks that were working together for their individual trails, they got together and then they went to the top, and we were able to get folks up there to support us. So our US representatives helped us get that Tiger One grant, right? Then after that, then Philadelphia Mayor Nutter and Congressman Huffle, both were there for the official founding of the circuit in 2012, and for that bridge that I just showed you that was open in 2012 as well. And then for the tip line item that PennDOT implemented, right? We got a county commissioner to support us. He was carrying the load for that, and the PennDOT secretary was in place and was really supportive of that process. You got to get the years of your MPO and your DOTs, but the key support here was also the State Conservation Agency. The funding sources for all the planning in Pennsylvania is typically from the State Conservation Agency and the William Penn Foundation. And then as you move up in the development process, you get funding from the MPO and the DOTs for design and further development. Again, it's great to have a foundation supporting you if you have that. We know that not every region, every municipality has that, but if you can find some philanthropic support, that is a great addition to your coalition. And then you start getting into the intricacies of how projects are managed, right? So we continuously want to talk to DOTs to help them shift from a project focus to a system focus. They need to provide their capacity internally to review all these projects, but also not look at them as one project here, one project there. You have to look at a system and how it's all going to connect, right? Can you imagine them building I-85 or I-95 or I-40 and say, no, we're going to build one little segment in Guilford County and one segment in Randolph County, and we're not going to connect it, right? So our trail systems are a little bit like that, right? We're building all these little pieces, and it's really tough to connect. And it's great if DOT and the state conservation and state park agencies can think about it at the network level. We need to continue to insist with DOTs that, these are relatively small projects. Maybe there's ways to streamline the review process, right? And you don't have to take a year or two that you would take with a highway project to review the trail projects. And again, capacity, right? The DOTs need capacity, our cities need capacity, nonprofits need capacity. So where we can staff up and provide that capacity, the projects will happen quicker. So right now, the Circuit Coalition has this list of priorities, right? They're trying to build up the capacity. They're trying to create now multi-municipal authorities, right? So we have 350 municipalities, maybe 3, 4, 5 of them can get together and build bigger chunks of the network. And the MPOs and the DOTs can provide additional technical support. So if anybody has any questions about these, I can go into a lot more detail, but I'm not going to bore everybody with details right now. In the end, why are we doing this? And it's all about our communities, right? So here you see lots of different types of trails in urban, rural, suburban locations. And it's about the quality of life, and it's about what we want to leave behind for our kids and future generations, right? This is who we're doing this for, right? We might enjoy a bike ride here, you know, for us right now, but this is going to be a huge asset, and it's not going to only be the trails, not only going to be the recreational benefits, not only the health benefits, but there's so many benefits, right? You're protecting the watershed, you're protecting that sense of place, right? You're making the places where you live better, and that's what we want to leave for our kids. So that's a quick story about the circuit. This is a view of the boardwalk again, looking towards Center City, Philadelphia. And just to thank, some key elements of the circuit, the Bicycle Coalition is still very, very active. Sarah Clark Stewart, my friend here, executive director of the coalition, is the chair, co-chair of the Circuit Coalition still. The local MPO is really active in trying to make a lot of these changes happen. So we're really glad to have support from so many different sides. And that's it. Any questions?
Yeah, there's a question, Spencer. Thank you. What a great sense of accomplishment over the last decade or 13 years or so. It's amazing. Probably for you to kind of talk through it. I imagine that's pretty powerful for you to have been involved in those steps along the way and talk about it. So thank you for sharing that story. Yeah, I guess the first question is around marketing or coalition building that Brianna has in the chat about challenges you face with working with so many partners, the 300 municipalities, the 45 or 50 organizations that are part of the coalition. What are the challenges you face with working with those partners? And then how did the brand kind of emerge from that work?
Yeah, so it started with ongoing partnerships, right? So I was managing the partnerships for the Delaware River and the East Coast Greenway, and the Bicycle Coalition was managing those for the Schuylkill River Trail. And
yeah,
sorry about that. So there were some partnerships in place already, and it grew from there, right? I think one of the things that really brought everybody in the region to focus on it was putting Tiger One together. So we basically put an application process in where everybody could submit their projects. And we went through the grant criteria and basically ranked, I think it was nearly 50 different trail projects, right? And ranked them in, were they ready with environmental issues, with utility coordination, with acquisition, right? Had they worked on design already? And got the MPO involved and the DOTs involved in that process. And all of a sudden, everybody was saying, "Wow, this is a huge opportunity. Let's try to get a really good application in," and we did. And then after we got the funding, then for sure, like everybody said, "Well, we can't stop here. We got these 10 segments done. How do we get everybody else funded?" And that created the ongoing partnership. So the Bicycle Coalition, the MPO and the Pennsylvania Environmental Council kind of created these regular meetings where people would talk about the issues, right? It expanded to include the whole region. And then in 2012, so 3 years after the initial application, the coalition was formalized and is still there, right? So, and prioritization is still a challenge, right?
Sure.
I think providing funding is a key piece. So state conservation, the William Penn Foundation still provide funding for initial planning, but the DOTs have created a multimodal fund that also funds some of the work, and the Regional Trail Fund is part of the picture. So funding for planning is key to make things happen as well.
How did you, this kind of leads into Palmer's question.
Mhm.
What was the big game changer with DOT shifting from maybe that project focus to a system focus? Where in that time continuum of what you discussed with the whole circuit coalition and the trail network, when did you feel like that was like, oh, great, that happened?
Well, it's an ongoing challenge, right? And I think for all of us here in NCDOT as well. So I think the challenge in Pennsylvania was the DVRPC, our NPO, is definitely on board. So they have, at least 5 or 6 staff that are completely dedicated to trails. So it's Sean, whose picture I showed a few minutes ago. But there's a group that does the management of the federal grants and helps the project sponsors manage those. And there's some folks that manage the regional trail fund. So they're hitting it from every side. So the MPO really gets it. From the DOT perspective, is still a challenge, right? So we were able to convince PennDOT to create a statewide pedestrian and bicycle coordinator position, whose full-time job is to just coordinate that. So that helps a lot, right? But Pennsylvania is a huge state. It has more highway mileage than all of the Northeast combined, right? Even if you add up New York, New Jersey, and all the way up to Maine, Pennsylvania has more highway mileage than all of this combined. So each division, we were advocating for each division of PennDOT within the state to have a full-time coordinator as well, and they still don't have that, right? So they still have to build up the capacity there. And they still have to create help the counties create the countywide ped bike maps, right? So in the Southeast, most of them do, but that's not the story throughout the state. There's still a lot more that they can do. They've created the multimodal fund, which provides funding, but again, the state conservation agency has a statewide plan for trails. PennDOT doesn't have a state plan for other bike infrastructure, for example, or pedestrian infrastructure. So it's an ongoing process.
Yeah, great. That's very helpful.
Mhm.
I wanted to get to Gretchen's question. Talk a lot about the kind of implementation funding and the construction budgets, but land is always a key
Mhm.
thing. And I guess wondering how many of those sort of extensions require private acquisition of land and easements from private property owners, and what tools are you using to do that?
Sure. So just like North Carolina, I think Pennsylvania is lucky to have had a lot of railroads. So a lot of these are rail to trail segments, and a lot of these are abandoned rail, right? So Pennsylvania Railroad is no longer there. There's lots of small rail alignments that the city or the state have acquired through the years. So that's part of the picture. And another part of the picture is trying to change regulations and zoning and rules so that future development corridors for trails are preserved. So the city of Philadelphia basically passed zoning improvements right around the time we did the Tiger One grant, which creates a minimum of 50-foot buffer along every stream where you basically can't build anything, right? You have to preserve that for watershed protection or for future trail construction. And in some cases, it might be up to 100 feet. So that was part of the picture there. Acquisition is still a challenge, but the other piece of it is, if you look at the history of development in Southeast Pennsylvania, had a lot of steel mills, a lot of industry along the rivers, right? So typically, it's not acquisition of small residential parcels. It is acquisition of larger industrial parcels. And then the challenge there is the environmental cleanup, right? It's all brownfields, and that's where a lot of the challenge lies.
So yeah, a bit different than maybe a rural trail acquisition.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, good. That's helpful. Thank you. Hopefully that helps you, Gretchen, with your question. We got time for maybe one more. And then have you done any sort of economic impact study of that investment of, 344 million over the past 13 years? Is there any sense of what sort of economic impact that's had?
Yeah. I didn't put the slides in here, but there's a lot. There's a growing number of studies on that. So at the beginning, when we put the Tiger One grant application, one of the first studies that look at the benefits of trails was the Radnor Trail study. So that's still referenced in all these cost benefit analysis and benefits of trail. That's still a key study there. And then if you click on the resource link that I shared earlier, there's some newer resources there as well. So there's some studies that have looked at the benefits of the 344 million investment. There's some studies that have looked at the benefits of using green stormwater infrastructure on trails and at development parcels, right? And how that has benefited the areas. Philadelphia is one of the big proponents of green stormwater in the nation. So that's another big driver for trails as well. So if you click on those resources on that link that I shared earlier, let me put that up.
I'm putting that in the chat. That'd be
yeah.
great. Good.
And then if you have any questions, just follow up with me. I'd be glad to point you to these individual studies as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Spencer. I think we're out of time unless there's any real short questions there, but Palmer, I'll turn it over to you to kind of close out the session. Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Mary Alice. Really appreciate your time and sharing your story. This has been really useful.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, Spencer and Mary Alice. This has been such a great day. A lot of helpful takeaways for the work we're doing here in North Carolina. So thanks again. And thanks again for everyone for attending our 2022 Piedmont Legacy Trails Summit. It's been fabulous. Again, appreciation to our sponsors listed here on the slide. Grateful to their support and grateful for y'all for registering. And I wanted to, sorry, I thought this were the end there. There we go. We had some great field trips this month, and thanks to those of you who came out. Winston-Salem's bike trails are a fabulous destination. Encourage you to go check those out and check out some of the fun places to eat and hydrate along the trails there. And then Vade Meekum is going to be an outstanding new asset at Hanging Rock State Park in a few years when they get that all funded. And then we loved visiting Oak Ridge's trail that's a part of the MST and a really unique side path project they did up there. So today, Jesse's going to be your host up in Madison at the River Park. We had to take the paddle section off of the trip because of high winds predicted for this afternoon, but still should be a really interesting experience for those of you planning to attend that. So with that, here's the end. So thank you again. We'll hang on for a few minutes. If anyone's got some questions, if you want to come off mute, go ahead and jump in. And again, thank you. We look forward to being in person next year and look forward to all the great work that we are going to do in this coming year. And I just want to throw this up there to remind you that we are going to be celebrating the Great Trails State next year. So there you go. We're North Carolina, we're the Great Trails State, and it's going to be Year of the Trail. So get ready. Here we come.